Hello, and welcome to a War Room for Courageous Wives. And today we have such an incredible treat for you. We have Coach Kesha V from Creative Visions, Wife Coaching, and Me versus Her movement. Today, we are going to talk about so many things from the mindset to communication to cheating, so many different topics in today's show, and I'm excited for it, and I think that you will be blessed by it for sure. So, I am going to toss it over now to Coach Kesha V herself so that she can introduce us and tell us some of the amazing things that she has going on and just let us know who she is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for having me. Hello to the listeners and everyone. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this. This is definitely an honor, and I'm just ecstatic to be here. Coach Kesha V, also known as Keshaville. I am born and raised in the windy city of Chicago, now residing in the Lone Star State of Texas. I am CEO of Creative Visions, which is an online coaching service, and also now founder of the Facebook group Me versus H.E.R. I have just made 5 years married on Friday, the 28th of August, to the awesome and wonderful Stephen Ville. Together we have 3 amazing young men that we're raising to be men of valor, and I have been coaching now for a little over 4 years. And that's pretty much who Coach Kesha V is: mother, daughter, sister, wife, mother, a woman of many hats.
Right, for sure, for sure. How did God bring you into coaching wives? Because that's your main business. So can you talk to us about Creative Visions and just like how God brought you into that ministry?
Yeah, sure. So, after several prophecies and just several years of seeking God for my purpose, like I just started getting to the point of, God, what is my purpose? Why was I created? What is it that you want me to do? And why am I still here, on earth?
Yeah.
And so after I started having that prayer, really, like literally one door just started opening and then the next. And so it all started with the move here to Texas. My husband and I got a prophetic word back at home in Chicago about changing lives and changing lives on your job. And I started thinking, clearly he couldn't mean the job that I'm working now, right. And so conversation led to the idea of us relocating to Texas, and so we did. And it started with a prayer group, believe it or not. It started with a prayer group on my job, and that prayer group just kind of opened up doors. And then I joined the church, and some other the ministers there were like, this is your gift, and this is God's confirmation that you this and this. And so it just kind of started, it just started like that. And so I've always been the encourager. I've always been the motivator. I've always been the inspiration to women. I've always been the one to empower women, but I did not know that there was a name for that. And so when I moved here, I joined another women's group and found out that, yes, there's a name to what you're doing. It's called coaching. And that's pretty much how that ball started rolling. And I haven't looked back yet, and I'm just so glad and grateful that I made the choice to just follow God's direction.
Yeah, for sure, because he does have the best plan for us. And I also think that it's definitely your gift, because I'm on Kesha's Facebook group, and which is Me versus H.E.R. And I love your live in 5 on Wednesdays. They're so good. They always bless me for sure. Like, I can tell it's you're definitely listening to the Holy Spirit and you're being led by the Spirit. Can you talk to us about why you started your group? I know that it's a movement, and so can you get into that a little bit?
So I started the group because Facebook is real funny with, what they allow you to do on your business page. And so Creative Vision is my business page. That is that's my biblical-based online coaching service, and it's for wives and future wives who are experiencing, some of the ramifications of being in an unhealthy relationship. And they're finally desiring to change that, and by doing a mindset approach to improving their relationship. And Facebook would not allow me to connect with those wives and those future wives. It was kind of like open to the public and open to everyone and whoever that wanted to see what was going on. And so I decided to create the group because I wanted to create a space for my wives and my wives-to-be. I wanted to be able to speak candidly to their pain points. I wanted to be able to provide hands-on videos and information, and the support that they need in the situations that they're facing. I also wanted to provide them with a community of other wives and future wives that have the same commonality. They're doing the same things. They're going through they're feeling the same way. I also wanted to create a space where they can get those tools, because you have the answers, the questions, but where can we get the answers? They're searching for the answers. So I wanted them to have one-stop shop. You can get answers. You can not only get answers, but you can get the support. Not only do you get the support, now you get the tools that you need to implement into your life to see these results. You see what I'm saying? So I wanted to create a one-stop shop where they can find all of this information, and it's right here. And the reason I call it a movement is because to transparent moment, I ran from this for a couple of years. I have been told time after time, you should start a group, and, so that you can minister to the ladies, on a more private and individual level. And no, I don't want a group. I don't want it. I ran for a little over a year. And finally, God said, hey, stop running. I need you to stop running. There's a wife out here that is waiting for you to show up. And so that's how and that's why I call it a movement, because I believe that when you do what God tells you to do, when God is involved, and when He's the center, He's the head, and He's just everything, He does what He wants to do with it. And I just really feel like God is getting ready to shift some lives. And it's funny because when I was home in Chicago and I got the prophetic word that I was going to change lives, it didn't resonate with me at that point. But now that I'm in this space, this is where I'm changing lives, in this group, in this, And so it's like, okay, God, I see how this is all coming together. I see. And so that's basically, that's it. That's how it happened. That's it.
Yeah, I feel you when you say, when you were like, wow, God, okay, because His plans, that Bible verse, His plans for us, we don't even think, what He has in plan, but He knows, why He created, Kesha, and He knows where He wants to go. It's just us getting in line with Him. So that's good. I'm glad you're being obedient, because, like you said, there's wives out there who need the coaching, who need you. I'm one of them, for sure. Because, I always say, I say on this podcast a lot, it's it's easy when it's going good. You know what I'm saying? But when things get tough in marriage, which it is, and there's always going to be difficulties, that's where it gets hard, and that's when you need that coaching. You need someone to be like, girl, get it together, or this is what, I've been there. This is what worked for me, And a lot of the times in churches, sometimes they're not really teaching us, how to go through the hard times and, how to stick it out, unfortunately. So it's good. It's a blessing, and I'm so glad that, you were obedient and started your group. And so talk to us about the acronym for H.E.R, because I really love that acronym, and I want the listeners to know how powerful it is.
So I came up with the name Me versus H.E.R because every day, even though I'm in a place where I am today, I have not always been there. And it still is a struggle. There is a struggle between the person that, I am and the person that God has called me to be. There's still a daily struggle because the flesh still wants to do what the flesh wants to do. So the acronym H.E.R stands for healing, empowering, and restoration. And these are the three things that I focus on in the group, because in order to become the woman that's really within us, and that's the thing, she's in us,
Right.
and in order to become that, we have to go through a healing process. We have to definitely go through healing of past hurts and past disappointments and past failed expectations and things like that. And then the empowering, that's where I come in as your coach. That's where I empower you to, become that woman and let all of that past go. And then the restoration is just the result of what you get from taking those steps. And so I combine that into the group. And that's pretty much where that came from. It came from myself, the woman that I am, versus her, which is the woman that we're all striving to be. We're all striving to be better women. And so that's how that came about.
Yeah. Yeah, that whenever you sent me the group, that name really resonated with me. I think I had told you I had just heard like a message about that, and it kind of hit home because that's something that I'm on this journey and I'm struggling with all the time. Like you said, doing what the flesh wants to do and doing what God wants me to do, and just being the woman He called me to be. I mean, because the enemy, he will not let up, especially when we get married. That's when it gets harder on us. So, so your group is awesome. Like you say, super hands-on. Coach Kesha V, she has assignments on there. And then also, like I mentioned before, she does the monthly webinars, which you can purchase through her platform, and so many other resources that she has. So, and she posts all that stuff on the group. So make sure you guys look up Me versus Her, H.E.R. It's spaced out like that too, right? When you search for it on Facebook, or what's the best way?
Yes, so they'll do the capital M-E, and then they'll space, and then they're going to put in the V-S, and then space it out, and then, yes, it's the capital H-E-R.
Okay, good. Yeah, so go search her group. She is definitely, like I said, anointed and spirit-led. I can feel it in her messages, for real. And so she had her recent webinar that she did for August was Why Men Cheat, and that's our topic for today. So we do want to get into that. I listened to it. I loved it. She had her husband on, and he gave like a really great male's perspective, which us women, it's good to hear that, like, to hear that side of it. And he was really raw. He didn't leave anything out. So when you listen to it, definitely have your notepad out and take notes, because he's giving us, he's saying stuff that men will not tell you. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it was really good to have him on. I thank you for that. That was some good information. But she also, Coach Kesha V, she also talked on the webinar as well with her husband, and she hit on a couple things from like a wife's perspective. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about those things, but not giving too much away, because I do want you guys to go to our platform and purchase the webinar, listen to it, and definitely be fed. But we're going to touch on a couple things here today. One of the things she talked about was communication, us becoming our husband's safe place, including God in our marriage, allowing God to deal with our husbands, and then changing our mindset, which are all really big topics. So they're probably topics within themselves already, but we just talk a little bit about, like, how it goes along with the topic of cheating and, why men cheat and that sort of things. I know that's a question that all of us ask, because I know sometimes we feel like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do as a wife, I'm being faithful, I'm doing all this, but he still has wandering eyes, or he's still, I have to check his phone, which we probably shouldn't be doing, but you know what I mean, like stuff like that, stuff, or it comes up, unfortunately. So one thing that Coach Kesha talked about was communication. And for me, I think that communication is one of the important factors of marriage. it's how we talk about issues, about good things, bad things, and if we don't have good communication, you create division. He's doing one thing, you're doing something else. You're on two different pages. So I think communication is so important because it creates that oneness. You're on one accord. So, Coach Kesha, if you can take it away and talk to us about, how communication is important when it comes to this cheating topic, and how that works. What you think, and some tips you can give us too.
Well, first of all, so when it comes to communication outside of God, communication is one of the top one amongst the 5 top most important things in the relationship, in your marriage. Me personally, and this may not be true, but I think it's number 1, outside of God, or next to God. I don't want to say outside of God, because God should be in your relationship. But next to God, communication for me, in my personal opinion, would be number 1, because you can have trust, you can have honesty, you can have commitment and dedication and all of the other most important things. But if we're not talking about it, or if we, how can I trust you if I have not talked to you to see if you are trustworthy? So communication is definitely very important. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that communication is not just, verbal. Communication is not just to have the conversation, but it is to be understood. And so you have to know your partner's communication style, so that when you're having this communication or this conversation, he's comprehending what you're saying, and vice versa. We have communication styles. Like, we have to know our own communication style, so that we can let our partners know, or whomever else that's speaking to us, we can let them know how to communicate to us so that we can understand. And so that's the first thing. It's to know the communication styles, and to know the communication, not just the styles, but the communication types. What types of communication is there? There's verbal, there's emotional, there is physical, and there's a mindset. Even there's a thing called communication mindset. And so that webinar is actually coming up on this Saturday. And we talk about those very things. And we talk about having the mindset and fixing your mind as to what you want your end result to be when you go to your partner to have this conversation. And so we get into all of that in the webinar. But when it comes to cheating, as my husband stated in the webinar, there are several reasons in which men cheat. And so in order to find out why, if you're a wife that has had an unfortunate incident to take place in your marriage, in order to find out why your man cheated, is to have the conversation with him, because this could very well be some underlying issues that may not even have anything to do with you as his partner. It could have been some childhood traumatic situation that he faced. It could be some insecurities, but you have to have the conversation. I tell a lot of ladies, even my future wives, if you're listening, instead of asking, hey, what's your favorite color, and what's your zodiac sign, and what movies do you like? Leave those questions to the kids. Let's have these difficult conversations now, so that they don't have to come up later on after we've gotten married, or after we've hit a pitfall in our marriage, and now we want to have the conversation. No, let's have the conversation now, and communication is not easy. It is not easy. There are a lot of things that you have to factor into having a conversation. Where you are you out in public? The mood, is your husband, and his tone, your tone. There's so much surrounding communication, and this is why I'm taking this time this month to focus on that. So this will be a great time to get into the group now as we take this month specifically to focus on communication, because it is so imperative. It is so imperative to have effective communication in any relationship. It's not even just with your husband. It's just period.
Right.
A lot of misunderstandings in relationships is because lack of communication.
Exactly.
And so, when it comes to, cheating, or even if you suspect that your man is cheating, don't go around and assume that it's obviously something I'm doing, or I didn't do this, or he's not satisfied. No, have the conversation. Hey, husband, I feel like this is going on. Can you let me know? Am I correct in feeling that way?
Right.
Versus, oh, well, you must be out there cheating. Again, it's how we communicate. It's how we communicate. So that is just so very important. I can't stress that enough. It is just so very important.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about the communication styles, and I can't wait to the webinar. So I'm definitely going to be purchasing that one so I can listen in on that, because that's important. Like for instance, me and my sister, we have, of course, 2 different husbands, right? So the way she communicates with her husband, like, it wouldn't go down in my house, and vice versa. So you have to kind of know your man, like you said, so you can have those serious talks, so that, like you mentioned in the webinar, you can become their safe place, so they don't go up and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of in defense mode. They feel comfortable being honest with you, because that
exactly.
That's how you're going to get something resolved. So, what is becoming your husband's safe place look like to you? Like, can you picture that for some of the ladies that are like, safe place? What do you mean?
So a safe space would be, it starts with communication. He needs to feel like he can come to you and talk to you about any and everything. And sometimes it's not what we want to hear. Sometimes it's kind of difficult, to hear it, but he has to feel like, I can, at least, make him feel like he can. He has to also feel like when the outside world has, is beating him up or they're disrespectful, he wants to come home and be affirmed by his wife. He wants to come home and feel like, if no one else has my back, my wife has my back. Right or wrong, he needs to feel like she's going to be there if no one else is there. Safe space means being vulnerable. Men are taught, we don't cry, and we definitely don't cry in front of a woman, and we definitely don't tell her our weaknesses. They're taught that, and so that's how they act. But he needs to feel that, if he's in pain, that he can come to you and express that pain and let it out. If he wants to cry, he needs to feel like, I can trust that I can do this with my wife, and she doesn't go and tell her friends or, or laugh at me or make me feel like I'm less of a man. That's pretty much what a safe space is for them. And how we as wives create that is even with the small things, like if he comes to you and say, I had a bad day at work, this is the time where you're building that trust for him to come to you. So this is the time where you say, well, how can I make your day better? Or, is there anything that I can do? And it starts with just small gestures like that versus, well, what did you do? You must have said something. Knowing your mouth, you went in there and you said something. Because it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
And so, or even just conversation. He tells you something, and then you guys are out in public, and what he told you, your girlfriend is repeating it, and he looking like, I told you that last week.
Wow,
during pillow talk. And
right.
it starts with building that trust, that safe space to be him, to be able to let his guards down, to be able to be vulnerable. And it starts with just small gestures around the house, and it looks like, what it looks like is he's excited to come home. That's what a safe space looks like for a husband. He's excited to come home and be with his wife and tell his wife his good news or even his bad news because he knows she's going to encourage him or she's going to make him feel better. That's pretty much in a nutshell what a safe space looks like. And we can build that slowly, one task at a time. It can definitely be built, and it should.
Yeah.
And if it's not, again, these are things we discuss in the group. This is how, we talk about how you can create that for your husband.
Yeah, that also, to me, one thing came to mind was that's almost like a preventative step too. So, because, a lot of times when, I think your husband may have mentioned this, like when men cheat too, it's because maybe they're not getting what they need at home. And it's probably not even like a sexual thing, just like emotional. Like when they come home, it's drama, or she's always nagging or whatever it is. So they go outside the marriage. Unfortunately, they shouldn't, but, and find a safe place somewhere else. And so that could be like kind of a preventative step to do that.
Exactly. He also mentioned too, and I've said this before, men go where they are affirmed. And so if you're not affirming your husband, and I'm not saying it has to be every day, but, if you're not affirming your husband occasionally, and then the minute he steps out into the world and gets a, hey, handsome, or, or I like how you fix this, or I like how, when he gets that, now it's, like you say, he's missing that from home, and so that's where he tends to go, where he's being affirmed. So that, again, yes, you're right. That's all included in his safe space. He needs to have all of that in his home so that when he steps out into the world, he doesn't need any of that. I don't need to go out and get any of that because I got it all at home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, right? And because I know women, I'm like that. Like, I don't care. Like, my husband compliments me a lot. So if someone else says it out there, it doesn't pay me any mind. I'm like, my husband tells me that all the time. Like, he always tells me I'm beautiful.
Exactly.
So sometimes we have to stroke those egos, ladies.
Exactly.
Like
And that's it. That's in a nutshell. Stroke the ego.
Yeah.
It's getting good, right? I know. And I'll let you get back to enjoying the show in just 1 second. But first, I want to encourage you to go to facebook.com and join Coach Kesha V's Facebook group, Me versus Her, H.E.R, Healing, Empowering, and Restoring the Woman Within You. This group is for wives and future wives tired of and ready to fight against unhealthy relationships. Join the group today. Now you can get back to enjoying the show.
Another thing that you mentioned that was really good on the webinar was like including God in your marriage, and even with creating a safe space. I think to me how that kind of tied in, as I was taking my own notes, was like for me, I usually like pray to God to give me like timing, right timing to speak to my husband. And like right words to even say, because I'll be honest and open here. Like my husband has a hot temper. He's a Gemini. You guys know Gemini men. So I have to make sure it's the right timing when I approach him, especially about something serious. You know what I mean? If I want to get answers out of him, I can't just go to him, any old time. And sometimes going to God and praying about that helps. What other ways do you think we can involve like God in our marriage? And can you give an example of that? Or
well, definitely prayer. Prayer is first and foremost for my husband and I. I live prayer. I eat prayer. I am a prayer warrior, and I'm praying several times of the day. And my day starts at 4 a.m. with prayer every day. And my husband will tell you. Yeah, he'll tell you, my wife will stop in the middle of a conversation and she'll have a prayer. So definitely prayer, but also, taking the time to read God's word, because a lot of times when you're in situations and you're looking for answers, we're looking within ourselves for those answers when God has already given us the answer in His Word. And so for me, sometimes I'll pray and just realistically speaking, I don't hear from God right away, or I don't get the answer that Kesha wanted, So I'll have to take it a step further, because God may say, go and forgive your husband, and Kesha may say, not right now because I'm still mad. So
right.
So going a step further, I'll just grab my Bible and or my phone. I'll grab my phone and I'll do a quick Google search. What does the Bible say about being angry? And it'll always lead you to a scripture about being angry. And so one of the first scriptures that pops up is, God is saying it's okay to be angry, but sin not in your anger. So for me, that's another way to include God into your marriage, and and to seek Him. That scripture always comes to mind. Seek Him first, and everything else will be added. So once you seek God first, He tends to work. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Sometimes in your seeking Him, He's working the situation out. And there's been times when I've been in my seek mode, like, God, you're going to really have to help me because I'm struggling in this area. I need answers. I need guidance. I need wisdom. And while I'm in prayer, I'll leave out of my prayer closet and I'll go maybe in the kitchen or something, and my husband will come to me and he'll say, you know what, I was tripping. I didn't mean this and that. And I'm thinking, like, wow, thank you, God, because I didn't have to say anything. So so to take it a step further from just actually praying, but just really seeking God and seeking answers. And I don't mean, okay, God, now what? No, like really seek Him. Like take time to Google. Google will bring up every Bible verse there is on whatever subject matter you type in. Or find you someone that you can talk to, of course, a godly counsel, and seek the advice from them, or maybe even prayer from them. But if you don't know God's word, and if you don't try to implement God's word, then God, you won't see Him. You won't see Him work in your marriage. And it wasn't until we connected on that level that we were able to recognize this is definitely the enemy. This right here is definitely an attack of the enemy. Versus before we were implementing God, it wasn't the enemy. It was you acting crazy, or you and your feelings, or you just being bogus today. No, now we're able to recognize it's the enemy, And so implementing God into your relationship changes your perspective. And it all goes back to mindset, which is another thing that I focus heavily on in my group, mindset. And when you have I'm not going to say that we have the mind of Christ, but when you strive to have the mind of Christ, then God thinks through you, He thinks through you. And so some of those beliefs or thoughts that you would have had prior to, you no longer have. You see things in a different perspective, and so you want to react in a different way, and it renders a different result. If people could just understand that little bit, that will automatically just change your marriage at least 30%. We're at 30% right now, just doing that little bit. And that's what I focus on in the group. That's what I try to, empower the ladies and support them in just changing your mindset and implementing God's word. Let's see what God says. If the way you've been doing things, you've been married to your husband for 10 years and y'all going through the same thing and you keep trying to do it your way, maybe it's time you try God's way. Let's get a different result. Let's do something different. You want to see different results, you have to do something different. So let's do something different. And that's where I try to implement, or at least teach the ladies to implement God in that place right there, to do something different.
Yeah, you just touched on two really good things, mindset, which we'll get back to, but you touched on how, you gave a really good story. I appreciate you being transparent there, where you talked about you didn't even have to say anything, and your husband came to you because you know, allowed God to intervene and do His work. And you talked about that in the webinar, how you really don't have to worry, like you don't stress your mind about if your husband is cheating, if he's doing this, because you know God gave you a word that if you do, you know, His kingdom work, He'll build your husband. Do you mind taking us there for a little bit?
Sure. So, as I stated earlier, I had been kind of running from not just this group, but I've been running from my calling. I had been running from it because I always thought that if I spent too much time in the church or too much time in the ministry or too much time doing this, that I was going to neglect my husband. And I did that. I did that. So when we first moved here, I joined the wife group, and I was the chapter director, and I had over 100-something ladies, and I lost balance. I lost focus, and I wasn't ready. That was my first time doing that. And so I said, I'm not going to do this anymore because I lost balance. I was giving too much over here and not enough over there. And so that was always my fear. My fear was if I put too much time over here, I was going to neglect my husband, and that in turn was going to leave that space, you know, for him to wander off. And a little over a year ago, a pastor was here in Texas, and this is a funny thing, true story. So he was our pastor in Chicago, and he came to Texas to speak at a church they were just getting ready to open, and he was their guest speaker. And he, you know, preached the lights out, literally, like the lights went out and everything. Very powerful, powerful man of God. And so he opened up, you know, the prophetic realm, and he just started speaking. And I was just like, God, I hope he get my husband, because my husband, you know, he believes in prophecy, but you got to really know what you're saying to him, because he, you know, he's just one of those people, whereas he saw that on Facebook or he prophet lying. So my prayer was that God really speak to him tonight, just give him a word. And so sure enough, he pointed to us out of the crowd. You too. You have right, come up here. Yes. And so he started prophesying to my husband and saying some things that, again, I didn't even know, you know, conversation that we didn't have. We hadn't had that conversation. And so he started saying some things to my husband and gave him his prophetic word, and I'm crying, and I'm like, yes, thank you, God, because he's a believer now. He believes in prophecy now. Now, me, on the other hand, if you giving a prophetic word, I'm there, because I need to hear from God. I need confirmation, right? Yeah. So as he got done with my husband, he turned to me. And I didn't know he was going to get me. I didn't know. But when he was done with speaking with my husband, he spoke to me and he told me. He said, you have been running. You have been running. And he gave me the exact amount of years that I had been running from my ministry and from my calling.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And he told me that God told me to tell you today, no more running. It's time out for the in and out, the peekaboo, the maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. It's time out for that. He said that there's a women's ministry, and he started naming the different types of women's ministries that were waiting for me. And his last words were, God told me to tell you, you take care of my business. And he turned around and he put his hands on my husband's chest, and he said, and I'll take care of him. I'll take care of this right here. You don't have to worry about this. And it was at that moment, that I realized that, and I hadn't even told my husband this. I hadn't told anyone that was my fear, and that was why I did not pursue my calling, because I didn't want to lose my husband. I didn't want to, you know, get too consumed in my ministry and lose that balance that we had, because it was just me and him here in Texas. And he didn't have a lot of friends. I had my ministry and the women's the group, and we were going out and we were having prayer groups and prayer lunches, and he was home, and I was all he had, and because I got busy, that was causing a wedge between us. Like, we wasn't watching TV, we wasn't having our TV nights anymore, we wasn't having our Saturday lunch because I had something to do with the ladies. All of that was happening, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this because I'm losing my husband, and I stopped. But once I got the confirmation that I got this, don't worry about this, do what I want you to do, and once I got that, and I had the conversation with my husband, and it's been just, it's like a burden lifted. Like, I can do my ministry now without worrying about my husband. I don't have to worry about that now. And then the second part to that was simply this. God knows our husbands. He knows their weaknesses. He knows what they like. He knows what they're tempted by. He knows. And so me worrying about him cheating or looking at another woman or being with another woman, I can't focus on what God wants me to do with my women if I'm too busy worried about what my husband is doing. And so I kind of just, went to God in prayer and just asked God that if my husband is doing something, you deal with him, because you can deal with him way better, worse, whatever terminology you want to use. God can get him,
Right.
And I just believe that. I believe that while I'm doing God's work and I'm doing God's business and I'm being faithful and I'm being true in my marriage, if my husband wants to do something, I believe that God will whip him. God will get him. And I actually had a client, and I told her, I said, you ever wonder, why your husband acting strange, or, why it just seemed like things aren't going good for him? He lost his job and just all this. God could be whipping him for something that he did that you may not even know anything about. God does that.
Yeah.
He does that.
Yeah.
He does that. So I had the mindset of, and I'll be transparent, I had the mindset that if my husband cheated on me, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to cheat back. It was just a matter of when, because I was going to cheat back. But God dealt with me in that area. Kesha, you're going to have to pay for your sin. If you cheat on your husband, that's a sin you committed, and I'm going to judge you according to that sin, not your husband. I'm going to judge him for his own separate sin, but I'm not going to judge him because you cheated. I'm going to judge you. And when I started thinking, so I'm going to cheat back on my husband and risk getting, judged and punished by God because I cheated back on you, that don't hurt you. That hurt me. That don't hurt my husband. It hurts me.
Right.
And when I looked at it from that perspective, again, changing my mindset, I told my husband, I'm not going to cheat back on you. I'm not. I'm going to let God deal with you. If you decide that you want to cheat and that's what you go out here and you do, I'm going to let God deal with you, because he can get you way better than I can even imagine. And I believe if
I said amen to that.
Yeah, God has a way of stripping you down to the point where, God, I'm sorry, he can do that. And I don't need to do that, because at the end of the day, getting you back is that's my karma, because what I put out on you is what I'll get back. And that's just my karma. So I'd rather just let God deal with you. And I'm trying to teach a lot of ladies, from that mindset, trying to change their minds on that, because I get a lot of ladies like, no, I don't care what you say. He cheated on me. I'm cheating back, or I'm just going to leave him. Okay, that's a choice. That's a choice.
Right.
But if you decide to stay with him, reconcile, and forgive him, then that's what you need to do. Don't go trying to cheat back on him, because that at the end of the day, it hurts you and not him.
Yeah, because that hinders your blessings. That's like you
Mhm.
said, that's Bible. That's First Peter 3. Like it would hinder your
Mhm.
blessing, even for him. Like how you were
Mhm.
saying, like God will deal with him, and like you said, they could be broken down crying. I've heard a story where this husband literally couldn't sleep. You know what I'm saying? Tossing and
Mhm.
turning because God was, because God, whenever you get married, God no longer sees you as one, you're two. And if you're not right
Mhm.
with your wife or you're not right with your husband, God is going to deal with you about that, and your blessings will be
Mhm.
hindered. A lot of people don't know how serious that is. You got to take that up
Absolutely.
with the Father. But
Absolutely.
one question that did come to mind while you were talking was, sometimes though, like how you mentioned it, you said some of your clients, like, they want to deal with it themselves, like they want to take matters into their own hands. Like, where do you think we can get that strength from to let go and really let God do what He needs to do? Because that can be hard. Like, you just mentioned with some of
Mhm.
your clients, like it's hard for us women. We're controllers. We want to be able to
Mhm.
fix it, and you know, uh, but we need to let God do it. But it can be tough to let go of that sort of power.
It does not, it definitely does not happen overnight. Changing your mindset does not happen overnight. It is, it's a process. But for me, it started with being tired of the same outcome or being
Mm-hmm.
tired of the same results. I just got tired of doing it my way, because my way, even when my husband and I first started dating, doing things my way, it did not resolve anything. It led to, hours and hours of arguing
Yeah.
and storming out, and I'm going home or I'm going to my mom's, and not talking to each other for days, and that is just too much energy. It's too
Yeah.
much energy, and it does not resolve anything. Even once we made up, how about the situation? It came up again, and this time it was a little worse this time than before, because we never resolved it. We just compounded more things on top of it, and I just got tired. You have to get to a place of, you know what? I am tired. I am tired of arguing. I am tired of, this repetitive scenario. I'm tired. I want to see something different, and I want to see something change in this particular area. I want to see something different. And so you have to get to the point where I want better. I want to be able, even if we have this same conversation, I want it to end better. I want it to end on a positive note. I don't want it to end in arguing and screaming. My throat was hurting some arguments at a day. I was yelling, so headaches, and my pressure was up. Like, those things are
Yeah.
literally killing us. They're killing us.
Mm-hmm.
And my doctor would tell me, hey, being in an unhealthy relationship kills you. It's your stress.
Wow.
It does. It does. You're angry. Your heart is not healthy. And there are several scriptures about a healthy heart. We have to have a healthy heart, and a lot of that comes from the relationships that we're in. Not even just your marriage, but even some of your friendships. If your
Mm-hmm.
friendships are not healthy, that can kill you. You're mad, you're angry, you're unhappy. Some people go into a state of depression. Some people go into a mental state, and then now you open up a whole different realm of mental issues just from this unhealthy relationship. And I just got
Yeah.
to a place of, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to keep going down this route. I'm tired. I want to see change. And so my strength, because, again, I'm not perfect. I do have my moments where, oops, I forgot I'm supposed to be praying right now, right?
Right.
Uh, I do have my moments, but my strength comes from, just step back for a moment. Just step back. If you're in the heat of an argument, don't say anything. Just don't say anything. That is one of the advice that I would offer to my ladies, because I hear that a lot. Well, how do you're in the midst of this situation, and emotions is high, and this is being said, and this is just don't say anything. Don't say a word. Well, that's hard. It is the first time you try to attempt it. It is, but if you start to notice a pattern, it's almost like your food. If you go to a restaurant and you always get the same thing, but today I want to try something different, and you like it. Just try it one time. Just try it one time. See if you like it. See the results that you get from it. And now when you go back to that restaurant and you want that same result you got from trying that new item, just keep doing it. Keep ordering it. That's how I look at it. That's where you and again, it's mindset. It's all in your mind. When you know you're in the heat of an argument, in your mind you should be already thinking of the resolution versus a response, because that's what we do. We get our thoughts together. Okay, soon as he gets done, I'm going to let him have it. No. Listen at what he's saying and what you want your end result to be. What do I want the end result to be once we're done with this? And most often, we want our end result to be to just be heard and to be understood. That's it. And how do we get him to hear us and to understand us? Clearly, it's not by arguing and yelling and screaming. It's not. So my thing with that is you get your strength from your thoughts, your mind. And everything I teach is around mindset and communication. You'll find that out about me. I'm just so mindset and communication, because our world revolves around mindset and communication. Bible tells us we are what we think. We are what we think. He tells us to think on these things. He transforms our mind. Everything is around mindset. So even in the heat of an argument, what is your mindset doing? What are you doing in your mind? What are you thinking while you're in this heat of the moment? And you'll get your strength from changing some of your thoughts. That's where the strength comes from, changing your thoughts. I had to start changing my thoughts. Instead of thinking, as soon as he get done, I'm going to bring up this. And a lot of times, and another transparent moment, I used to think, while my husband was saying I used to think of times when, he did the same thing. I remember the last time. You shouldn't even be thinking about that. You should not even be thinking about that. You should be thinking about, okay, we're here, and what do I want our result to be? Do I want us to break up? Do I want us to be stronger? Do I want us to, resolve this? And now, while you're thinking that, you're thinking of ways to resolve this issue. That's really what we should be thinking. Are we always thinking that? No, but that's what we should be thinking.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. I was taking some notes because that's a good one. You brought up a really good point, because when you are in the heat of the moment and your emotions are firing up and your blood is boiling, it's really hard to, like you said, the best thing to do is to be quiet and think about, I want peace out of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want a divorce. I don't want to piss him off more. I do want peace.
Right.
So that's really good advice.
Wow. Now that was some good stuff. So if you are enjoying what you're listening to as much as I am, I encourage you to go to facebook.com and search Creative Visions. That's CRE, the number 8, TIVE Visions. Creative Visions is a biblically based online wife coaching service. Yes, I did say wife coaching. Imagine having your very own coach in your corner, supporting you and empowering you to obtain and maintain healthier relationships through the change of your mindset and personal growth. Well, you're in luck because that is exactly what Coach Kesha V does for so many wives and future wives out there. So I encourage you to go to her page on Facebook, give her a call, send her an email, or go ahead and schedule your very own one-on-one wife coaching session with Coach Kesha V herself. Now, let's get back to the show.
To think about. And also, one other thing that came to mind is, not trying to win. I think as wives or even as husbands too, like whenever, you're with your spouses and you guys are going at it, someone wants the last word. Someone wants to win. Like you said, I want to show him that he did this, and this, so he's not going to, think he can come do this too. So, yeah, we have to, as you said, transform our mindset. So going back to that, can you leave us off with some tips or maybe a little steps or anything to help us with our mindset? Because that is a big part of all of this, whether it comes from, mindset, so we're not focusing on them cheating or just other issues in marriage in general. Like you said, mindset and communication is such a big thing, especially the mind. Oh, my goodness.
So the mindset is very powerful. The one thing I would leave off with, or tip or advice, is to first of all ask yourself, because there's two different types of mindset. There's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. And the problem that we're having, or the problem that I'm seeing, is that we all have a fixed mindset. We believe what we believe. You can't tell us anything different. And a lot of things that we believe is things that we were taught. Like, there's really on this earth, other than God's word, there really is no blueprint on marriage. And so we learn marriage from our mothers and fathers and how they were in the house, or our big mamas and our grandmothers, or our friends that are married. Yeah. We really learn these things from other people. And so we grow up with these things and these beliefs that these people instilled in us that may work for them but may not work for us. And so, what grandmama was doing, centuries ago for Big Daddy, I ain't gonna always work for. It's not gonna work for me and my husband. So, so the one thing I would say is to first of all, do a self-evaluation. Do you have a fixed mindset? Are you fixed in your ways? Are you fixed in what you believe? This is what I believe. There's no change in me. This is my way or no way. Or do you have a growth mindset? So those are the two differences. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A growth mindset says, well, you know what? Maybe, the way I've been thinking, it's not the way, or it's not the only way, or, maybe I can kind of tweak some of my beliefs or some of my ways or some things to fit my marriage, because, a lot of people, no marriage is the same. What works in my marriage may not work for you in your marriage. And I can't go into my marriage with the mindset that, well, Jessica says to do this, this, and that. Well, no, that works for Jessica. So that would be the first thing. If you do have a fixed mindset, the first thing I would say is to just pray on that, because having a fixed mindset definitely will limit you to some of the same issues that that you've been facing and that you will continue to face, because you're not open to changing your mindset. And then the second thing I would leave with you all is to, once you find out that, okay, I kind of was in a fixed mindset stage, but I'm ready to, open my mind, and I'm ready to change that into a growth mindset. Then the next thing would to be find out what areas that you need to change your mindset. Find out what areas where you've had these limited beliefs or these fixed thoughts, and then see how you can change some of the like for me, and I always another thing you'll learn about me is I put my business out there because I'm not exempt. I've walked this walk, and this is how I can let other wives know. But I went into my marriage with the mindset that all men cheat. I went into the marriage with that mindset because that's what I was told. That's what I was told. That's what I saw. That's what I had been involved with. All of the guys that I had dated up until my husband were cheaters. All of my friends, they were going through cheating men. That's what I saw. And so my mindset had me to believe that all men cheat. And my husband was like, no. We're going to have to work on that mindset of yours. And it took time, though. It took time. Like, it will not, because our mindset, our paradigm, we've been developing our paradigm since, I would say 3, since we were the age of 3. Everything that we have been taught by our parents, everything that society has taught us, everything that we learned in school, everything that we learned on TV, all of this has been downloaded into our brains, into our conscious minds. And so you wait till you 40, 45, and 50, and now you like, oh, my God, I've been corrupted, and now you want to change. It's not going to happen overnight. It definitely starts with the decision to change. You have to decide, you know what, there is something wrong with my mindset, and I want to change that. And that's a hard thing to admit, because everybody thinks that the way they think is right. Everybody thinks what they believe is right. Everybody thinks that how I feel is right. So it's definitely hard to come to terms with admitting that I've been living in a fixed mindset, and I want to change that. So that would be the first thing. I would just say, decide if you have a growth mindset. Can someone come to you and say, hey, Jessica, maybe you should try this, this, and that, and you're receptive to it or not? If you're not, then chances are you have a fixed mindset. Once you figure that out, that you have a fixed mindset, make the decision that, you know what, I no longer want to have this fixed mindset in this area or in that area or in all these areas. Then the next thing to do is to find you, outside of prayer. Prayer is always first and foremost. But then outside of that, find someone that can help you. Find someone, because you cannot do it on your own. You didn't learn these things that you learned on your own. Someone had to teach you that. So someone has to teach you a change of mindset. Someone has to teach you the steps to changing your mindset. And the first, and I'm gonna leave you guys with this, because I don't want to give too much, because this is what we talk about in our webinar. But step 1 is affirmations. When you have a thought, when you're in a situation and you have a thought, which is usually the same thought that you always have, do some affirmations, and I will not think like this, or I will not feel like this, or today I'm deciding to change this thought, this very thought right here. I'm deciding to change it to something else. You fill in the blank. Like just start being conscious of your thoughts and your beliefs and changing them. I had to do that with the whole cheating thing with my husband. Instead of, you know what, he just don't. I did. I told my husband, just go ahead and do it, because I know you're going to do it. It went from that to, no, Kesha, all men do not cheat. And that's what I had to tell myself every day. Affirmations. I am with a man who is going to be faithful. I am with a man who will show me that all men do not cheat. All men do not cheat. That is a limited belief that was instilled in your mind, from 20, 30 years ago that we no longer believe. I had to do this every day. And that would be the tip that I would leave for you ladies and whomever else listening, is to start, bringing those beliefs and those thoughts to captive and changing them to a positive. Well, my husband he always angry, or he always snapping off. No, today your affirmation is going to be, you know what, today my husband and I are going to have a productive, effective conversation that's going to lead to a positive result. That's it. Once you start to say that in your, out of your mouth, and you start to believe that in your mind, that's how you start. That's where the change of mindset starts. It changed with you changing your thoughts, changing what you actually believe, changing that negative belief into something positive. That's where it starts, right there. And that would be my tip.
Sure. Yeah, that was some good stuff. I love that. Again, taking notes. And I hope that all our listeners are taking notes too. I am a strong believer in affirmations. I love affirmations. There's actually an app that I have on my phone, and it prompts me throughout the day to say different affirmations. You can put in your own, but it comes with some too. So, if you want to share that with your ladies too, I love that app. So throughout the day, it reminds me, because, like you said, mindset's a big thing, and that's something that I struggle with, making sure that I'm cleansing my mind of negative things and, putting in positive things and good things, because you have what you say. And lastly, before we go, I think that, that whole conversation with mindset kind of sets the stage for what I kind of think is the next step to this, or an addition to it, kind of like a preventative step, which is like praying for our husbands' minds and temptations and lust and that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that, on like building a fortress around our marriage, and praying for our husbands' mindsets too, right? So so they won't be tempted by the enemy,
Absolutely. You definitely have to pray for your husband, because what I'm finding is that in the kingdom there are more active women than there are men. And it's not to say that men don't believe in God, but they just don't go to church. They don't go to church. A lot of them are not active. A lot of them they don't do the prayer thing. I hear a lot of guys, well, I don't do the prayer thing, but I have a relationship with God. Okay, well, so fine. Since you're not going to do the prayer thing, I'm going to do the prayer thing. And
right.
I believe that this all ties into being that safe space, that help me. So if your husband does not do this, or that this is not his strong area, then you as his helpmate, this is what you step up and this is what you do. And I definitely believe that, our prayers, because we're next to God, we're the ones, closest to our husbands, and we're the ones, we're soul ties, we're soulmates, and so who better other than God to pray for his soul than his soulmate?
Yeah.
And so when you go into prayer, I like to pray for my husband while he's asleep, because I get to cover the top of his head all the way down to his feet. Like, I literally touch every area of his body. And the reason I do that is because he's human, right? He's human. They will get tempted. And they will get tempted against their own will,
Right.
It happens. And so I make it a point to cover his mind. I pray against lust, because everything that you see on TV is about sex, and there's some half-naked woman. If you go on Instagram, there's some half-naked woman. If you go in the store, there's a half-naked woman.
Right.
So I just pray that God keeps him strong, because it happens. Like, it happens to some of the most powerful preachers. You find out, what, he cheated on his wife, because they're still human. They're still human, and they are still tempted. So my thoughts about building that fortress around my husband and that the protection around my marriage, I strongly believe in doing that, especially for us because of the line of work that I do with wives and with marriage. And I just feel like the enemy wants to attack us, twice as hard because of what we're standing for and what we're doing. And so this is why I stay in constant prayer. My husband and I, we pray every night before we go to bed. And I do that because when he gets weak, I want to be sure that my prayers, are what keeps him, strengthens him when he's in his weak moment. I want to make sure that I've covered him in his weak areas. I want to make sure that, I put that, that hedge around him, and I just want to make sure that I've done my part, I just believe in the power of prayer, and it is so important because, like I say, they're human. They are human. They get weak. They get tempted. They get tested, and we don't always pass the test. And it might not even be in the area of cheating. Some husbands are battling addiction, and he may get in a situation where he's around someone that's doing something, and he may get tempted, and they're not always as strong as they want to be. And so I like to believe that my prayers are keeping my husband strong. I like to believe that. I like to believe that when he's in that moment of temptation, my prayers, along with, his will, his will to, his will as well, and of course God, I believe that that's what's keeping us both on the right path. So, yes, it is extremely important to build that fortress of protection around your marriage because the enemy is after every marriage. He's going to attack in every way at every moment he gets. And the moment people realize that to me, that's like the half of your battles. Once you know that, this is just a trick of the enemy, let's go to God in prayer, that battle is won right then and there. It's over because we recognized it, we exposed you, devil, we prayed, and you out of here. We good. So, but definitely pray for their minds. Definitely pray against temptation, and for us too. We're not exempt. We get tested and tempted in certain areas and certain things, and it's the same thing. They just have it. I think they have it a little worse than we do because in the society that we live in, sex sells, and so everything. I mean, almost everything you see is about sex. And it's like, oh, my God. They can't walk around with blinders on, they can't walk around. So you just pray, and again, you have the conversation. And we go way back to the beginning of our conversation when we started this talk. Communicate, let your husband know that I understand that you're tempted. I understand that there may be some temptations out here. What is it that I can do as your wife, to help you in this area? Or is this an area that you need help in? Ask your husband those questions, and you'll be surprised. My husband and I, we have this talk at least once every 6 months. I'll go to him and I'll talk to him, Is there anything that you're struggling with? Is there an area that you need me to pray and focus on when I'm in prayer? Is there an area that you're struggling in at this time? And he lets me know. And he's never told me temptation or lust, but there was he was, as far as his mouth, like he's a cursor, and he did tell me that, I'm trying to work on filtering my words. He's very harsh. He's very just stern and just, no filter on his mouth. And he did come to me and he did say, I do struggle with that. And so that was the area that I needed to go to God and pray for, and I did. And I can see he's coming around. So it is definitely important to have the communication between you and your spouse, definitely honest communication as well, and prayer. Those they work interchangeably.
Right.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Kesha V. I appreciate you coming on and giving us so many nuggets and sharing your wisdom. If you
Thank
want to
you.
leave us off, let the ladies know where they can find you, your social medias. I know we talked about your Facebook group, Me versus
Hmm.
H.E.R. Where else can we find you and get access to your webinars and also your sessions? I know you do one-on-one sessions
Okay.
too.
Okay. So Creative Visions, they're both on Facebook. Creative Visions, it's spelled CRE, the number 8, TIVE, Visions, and that's found right here on Facebook. I can be reached there, and then also on Me, capital MEVSHER, which is Me versus Her, and that's the community that can also be accessible here on Facebook. And if you do a search in the search engine, they both will pop up. I have it where they both can be found. So it's an easy search, and I'm right here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much again.
Thank
And yeah,
you
thanks
so much for
everyone
having me.
listening. No problem. I will
Thank
definitely have to do it again after another one of your webinars because they are so good, ladies, for sure.
Absolutely. 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 I love it. It'd be my honor.
All right, well, thanks our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, take care.